Welcome back to r/JustNoHOA, where people share stories about their crazy homeowner associations that make us feel better about not living in an HOA. And in case you are new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to join our awesome community. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. The first one is titled HOA claims my patriotic mailbox violates HOA rules and demands that I remove it. I never knew that the neighborhood I have lived in for years would decide that something as trivial as a mailbox cover is somehow devaluing other properties in the neighborhood. Well, my HOA told me that I had to remove it, and as a Marine veteran, I stood up for my beliefs and came out on top. If I survived 3 tours, I can survive this damn neighborhood and its nosy HOA members hating on my mailbox. Although guys, imagine that you are a veteran and then on top of all of the stuff that you have witnessed in your life, you need to also deal with these awful HOAs. I gotta say, I feel really bad for the veterans that are in this sort of situation. Anyway, it all started a few weeks after Memorial Day. The neighborhood allows us to put up flags and other patriotic decor during certain holidays, which I've always felt was too controlling to begin with. But anyway, this is what I get for buying into an HOA. I guess I should mention that I have had this flag wrap like a decal on my mailbox for almost 2 years now, and they have never said anything about it. So I get a letter first and then several emails daily stating that the mailbox wrap needs to be removed or the whole thing just needs to be replaced. Either way, they don't care as long as it looks like a plain old mailbox afterwards. I have always been compliant with their excessive rules, like my grass being measured with a ruler, but this one is where I draw the line. After a few letters and emails, they started to send me fines as well. I refused to pay them as I waited patiently for the HOA board meeting that only happens every 3 or 4 months. As this time passed, my wonderful neighbors and friends started to get involved. No one, and I mean no one, gave a rat's butt about the flag wrap and disagreed entirely with the HOA. A few of them even started sending emails to the HOA telling them that they should change their rules and leave me and my mailbox in peace. The annoying warning and fines seemed to slow down after this at least, but they did not stop entirely. I always throw a party about a month or so after Memorial Day. It is my birthday and I love cooking out and throwing some big hunks of meat on my barbecue smoker. I invited most of the people I know in the neighborhood I have for the last few years that I've lived there. Everyone always loves it, and after a few beers and some good food, everyone is having a great time and chatting it up. So it is no wonder that the topic of my mailbox came into the conversation. After a moment, the discussion seemed to become a little passionate, and a few of my neighbors insisted that they would also put up patriotic decor in protest of the HOA's harassment over the mailbox. I laughed at this and genuinely thought very little of it, except maybe just happiness that they all had my back. Well, a few days after the cookout, there most certainly were several new flag-wrapped mailboxes and other displays of patriotism in almost all the houses on the main drag of the neighborhood. I couldn't believe it, and it brought a huge smile to my face. Time continues to pass and we are maybe a month away from the HOA meeting. I received another email, and this time it is different from the same forwarded ones I've been getting. It stated that due to inciting discord among the neighborhood, that I would be given a larger fine than I have been already. This one was almost $1,000, which is crazy compared to the $50 ones that I've gotten weekly. This must be about my friends putting up their patriotic decorations. After this, I hosted another get-together with my neighborhood friends and shared this new information. They are all in agreement that I should get to keep my flag wrap on my mailbox and that it is not hurting anyone or devaluing the neighborhood at all. I forgot to mention that they had all received their warnings through letter or email, and some of them are being fined as well. My good friend Stacy has a son that works for a local news channel, and she took it upon herself to talk with him, and he thought it would make a good short story. He ended up coming over with cameras and interviewing me, where I talked about my history as a veteran and that they want me to remove my flag wrap because it is somehow devaluing the neighborhood. This interview was quick and easy, and he talked with a few others to get their opinion of the HOA's patriotism hatred. Stacy's son said that he thinks that it will help my case as well. How are they going to defend such a petty and unpatriotic offense? He was right. Her son made sure that the story aired a few days before the board meeting, and that way they could see exactly what kind of negative backlash they will get for such a bad thing. My daughter is also not shy to use social media to her advantage. She put the neighborhood on blast and brought such an impressive community together to support the situation that I almost felt bad. Like I was making a bigger deal out of it than it needed to be. But the thing is, it is just a flag wrap, and I should be able to show my country and those who died for it my support if I want to. It's not like I am leaving some old Christmas decorations up all year round to look tacky. Right around the time that the short news story about us aired, I stopped getting emails and letters from the HOA. My friends, on the other hand, continued to receive their fines for their new patriotic decor. The board meeting was held at the neighborhood's clubhouse up near the front by the pool. On my way there, you would have thought that we were a bunch of adults trick-or-treating, minus the costumes, and there were tons of people walking up to the clubhouse. There were probably almost 100 residents going inside, but I was not sure why. I honestly couldn't imagine how they managed to piss off even more people lately. There is no way that all of them are here for me and my old mailbox. However, it turns out they were all there to support me. The 5 board members appeared shocked, and I'm sure that I was more surprised, but maybe not, judging by their slack jaws and large eyes when they looked over the crowd. The meeting started after you could finally hear someone over the hum of the room. The first member spoke, getting to the point quickly. She stated that they were there to discuss the board's rules and that if someone wanted to speak up about changes, that they could. I was the first to stand. As the crowd looked at me, I felt anxiety, but also pride. I felt like I brought this community together to stand up for a cause that was a good one. And showing pride for your country is important, especially when you have spent as much time as I have going to war for them. I actually said almost exactly that. Several people clapped and made low comments of approval after I was finished telling my story. The board members did not have much to say. They did speak their piece about why they felt that the flag wrap was unattractive, tacky, and took away from the value of the homes around it. My friend Stacy stood up saying that if that was the case, that she petitioned for the whole neighborhood to have their mailboxes wrapped the same as mine. Other friends stood up saying that they felt like there was nothing wrong with it and that they were being cruel and unpatriotic. It didn't take too long of the whole room getting louder, speaking up about how it is sad and disrespectful to our country that they think a flag is unattractive or devaluing before they cast the vote. It was almost unanimous that the neighborhood wanted patriotic decorations to be allowed all year round. Clearly, they had to set some limitations, but my flag-wrapped mailbox was free to stay. I was so happy and humbled by my neighbors and community. I couldn't believe how many of them showed up in support of me and my silly mailbox situation. But I can say that I wouldn't have been able to win without all of them there. It means so much to me as a veteran to feel the love of those around me. Let me put it this way, don't screw with a war vet and their American flag. And guys, I gotta say, this is probably in my top 5 favorite HOA stories, simply because I really enjoy it when the neighborhood bonds together and stands up to defend a veteran. Honestly, I wish there were more stories like this. But then again, I gotta say, I'm also not really surprised that the HOA was not a big fan of the American flag. Maybe instead the HOA would have enjoyed the flag of the Soviet Union or 1940s Germany, because that would fit most HOAs probably more than the American flag. But anyway, I'm getting off track. If you enjoy the HOA stories, then please don't forget to like the video and maybe post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance. And the next story starts like this. This is a story that was told to me by a good friend of mine over a few bottles of beer. Proceed with caution. Andrew was a back-of-store lead hand for a retail store. Along with his colleague Larry, he made sure that shipments and deliveries were scheduled and handled correctly, that the crew out back were doing their jobs, and that the restocks for front of store were picked correctly. His assistant manager, AM, Frank, had resigned and Andrew had applied for the job. Andrew had been handling many of Frank's duties, particularly those that involved computers, since Frank was older and not very adept with a keyboard and mouse. Andrew did not get the job, and instead they brought in Richard, an AM from another store, and Andrew had worked with him in the past. He was a jerk and had once thrown Andrew under the bus for one of his own mistakes, causing Andrew to get yelled at on the floor in front of his colleagues and then hauled into the manager's office to get written up. Andrew was thinking of quitting anyway, but getting turned down for the AM position and then seeing Richard roll in, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. One pertinent thing is that Larry, his colleague, was a Harley-riding biker type. He was not a member of a club but enjoyed riding and did charity rides and stuff like that. He also, every year for a decade, went to Sturgis, South Dakota for the annual rally. And guys, by the way, recently, just by coincidence, I have watched quite a few videos about this yearly motorcycle rally in Sturgis, and I'm curious, have any one of you ever been there? Let us know in the comments how it was. Anyway, so Andrew decided to submit his resignation, effective the day after Larry left for his trip. He did this by attaching a PDF of his resignation to a bunch of reports and requested a read receipt. Bingo! Richard clicked read and Andrew printed it out. The schedule for the warehouse crew was posted online on a web-based scheduling app with the admin account under assistant manager at store.com. This was store policy. All emails were created as job title at, and when a person left the position, the password was changed. This way nobody had to change their contact information, they were communicating with the job title and not the individual. IT had a list of logins for every position and changed passwords with every transition, so the outgoing person could not sabotage things. Andrew had asked Richard repeatedly for his password to the scheduling site and never got an answer. So Larry worked a Thursday and headed out. Andrew worked on Friday, his last day, and before he left he told his crew to make certain that they checked the scheduling app and worked their scheduled hours. Then he went home and shut off his work phone. On the Monday before opening, he showed up to turn in his phone and his keys to be greeted by Richard absolutely losing his mind. The store manager corralled both of them and took them to his office. Richard went on a tear, describing the crap show that happened over the weekend, how Andrew was incommunicado, Richard had to come in and pee on fires and demanded that Andrew be written up. Andrew let him go on and on and on. The store manager said,
"Andrew, what have you got to say about this?"
"Well, a write-up is a disciplinary action for an employee, right?"
"Yes."
"It's going to be hard to make that stick, since I'm not an employee." Andrew had a folder and pulled out a printed copy of his resignation, showing that the previous Friday was his last day. The store manager read it and then handed it to Richard. Richard said,
"You never sent this to me."
"Yes, I did, 3 weeks ago. Here is a copy of the email and here's a copy of the red receipt." The store manager gave Richard a wilting stare.
"So, have you got lined up to replace Andrew? Have you been interviewing?"
"I didn't get this email. This is fake. No, I haven't been interviewing anyone. I guess Larry will have to cover until I can fill that position." Andrew, yeah, good luck with that. Larry is not even in this time zone. He's in Sturgis. And no, it's not fake. If you want, IT can verify that by checking your email history. Richard turned white and he realized that he had no supervisors for the dock at all. The store manager asked Andrew,
"Is there any way we can get you to stick around?"
"No thanks, I've already lined up a new job, sorry, but you've got bigger problems than this." Store manager,
"Like what?"
Andrew pulled out more copies of emails and handed them over. "I asked Richard repeatedly for his password to the scheduling app, several times. Can I jump on your computer for a second?" SM turned his laptop to face Andrew and Andrew logged into the scheduling app. Okay, so the admin account is under Richard's job title. This is where we post the schedule for the crew. I used to do it for Frank because he wasn't a computer guy. But technically this falls under the assistant manager role. The login is assistant manager at XYZ. I am logged in under my own account, but I can still see who is scheduled across the board. I just cannot edit it. I don't have the permission. Here is the schedule for the warehouse crew for the next 2 weeks. He turned the laptop back around and said,
It is blank. There's not anyone scheduled to work at all.
Andrew turned to Richard. Here's my keys and here's my company phone. I am done. By the way, in accordance with this email from IT, I have factory reset the phone. Good luck. Andrew left the office, and all the way out of the store he could hear the manager yelling at Richard. Apparently, Richard had to go into the personal file and burn up the phone lines calling warehouse guys to come in at the last minute. And company policy was that if you were called in within less than 24 hours notice, it was time and a half. Many of the records were outdated, so if he reached a worker, he had to ask them if he had any of their co-workers' numbers. Once he got things straightened out a bit, he was shown the door. They brought a lead hand and an assistant manager in from another store. Richard was fired for cause, denying him unemployment and tagged with a "do not rehire." And ripe stars, you probably cannot get better revenge on a co-worker or boss than this. In my opinion, that was pretty much textbook revenge. And the next one was posted by user, I guess you pronounce that BYLAWS, on our own subreddit r/ripe stories, and it is titled How I Ruined a Billionaire for a Hit and Run. Let me introduce you to Fred. Fred was a big landowner, billionaire and a-hole around here. His grandfather was the mayor of the city I live in, and he has a very entitled daughter. This daughter did a hit and run on my nephew 15 years ago. She was seen, the car had the expected damages and blood was found on the car, but it was inconclusive. Thank God my nephew made a full recovery. The story of my revenge starts 170 years ago. My grandfather was in a tight spot and had to sell some of his land. One of his uncles was willing to buy the land and insisted on a contract. In this contract was a clause that allowed the owner of the adjacent land, the land was named by plot number, to buy back the land for the price it was sold plus 10% plus inflation whenever the land was for sale. Before that man could buy back the land, the uncle died and his son was not interested in selling it. He died without wife or children in the First World War and the land went to the city. My grandfather wanted to buy the land later on, but the city was not interested. The time went by and to the end of World War II, the local bank burned down. Many documents were destroyed, with them the contract my grandfather had made. There were rumors that the mayor, Fred's grandfather, put fire to that bank to destroy incriminating evidence. To our surprise, Fred's father was now the owner of the land and the notes to these plots were inaccessible. Something really fishy happened, but we didn't have any evidence or documents to get the land back. So after the hit and run, I found the motivation to look into the strange land transfers and F that man over. I started digging through the city archives. I don't know how many thousand pieces of paper I looked on, following document numbers, references, and straight up reviewed all documents from a 2-year time span. Interestingly enough, I found a lot of other dead ends and strange switches of ownerships of land all around 1942 to 1944. To my surprise, I found a copy of the contract after 5 years of searching. But there were 2 problems with it. Number 1, it was not a legal copy, and number 2, the part with the buyback clause was removed, but there was an interesting part I didn't know. The copy I had was from the document 2 of 3. God bless my grandfather and his uncle. They made 3 copies, and 3 people signed the contract, my ancestor, his uncle, and the local lord. I found the last living relative as a nice lady 350 kilometers away. She gifted all the family documents for safekeeping to a local museum. I went there with her permission and organized her documents with the help of the curator. It took me 3 additional years to find the 3rd original copy of the contract. I made a legal copy with my lawyer and he started to look into our options. I nearly fainted when he told me that the worth of the land is now more than 3 million euros and our buyback costs would have been around $180,000. So we sued the city, didn't see that coming, have you? With this leverage and some pointers from the city, then looked really deep in the land transfers Fred's grandfather and my father did. They went through everything with a very fine comb and found a lot of irregularities. They demanded a lot of land back, and to make it short, we went for a settlement. Fred and his whole family went bankrupt and a lot of them were fined and even went to jail. And ripe stars, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you still cannot get enough of my content, then I would highly suggest to check out my endless binge watch playlist, which will soon show up in the left corner of the screen. In addition, I would really appreciate it if you could not only subscribe to the channel but also turn on the bell notifications, which you can do by clicking on the little bell icon right next to the subscribe button. This will help my channel tremendously and this will make sure that you don't miss any of my videos. Furthermore, if you want to see additional ripe content that I don't post on YouTube, then I would suggest to head on over to patreon.com/ripeyoutube for more than 50 exclusive videos that you will not see anywhere else. Thank you so much for your amazing daily support and I hope to see you again tomorrow.